All right, shifting our focus now, Ukraine is under relentless fire. Russia has increased the intensity of the attacks. Ukrainian front lines are collapsing. As Kyiv begs for weapons, Europe is split down the middle. Germany and France are clashing over buying American weapons for Ukraine, and President Macron wants to halt the weapons supply to Ukraine, arguing that European security should be the top priority. Take a look at this report for more details.
Thunderous explosions and the scream of missiles and drones are the permanent terror in Ukraine. Russia has unleashed a brutal, unstoppable aerial blitz, hammering energy grids and military hubs into submission with relentless precision. Kyiv residents are forced to stay in tents in sub-zero temperatures, living and sleeping under constant terror.
To be honest, I am not afraid of cold. It is not scary to get cold. I am afraid of the enemy and the shelling. Because of the cold, I don't want to do anything. Here you can talk to people, support each other, charge our devices.
We are already on the 6th day. On Friday, the attack happened, and since that night, we have had no heating, no water, no light. We can only have light at night. This night it was from 1 o'clock in the morning until 4 in the morning. The water was cold. There is no heating at all.
On the front lines, the situation is even more dire. Russian forces are making rapid gains, forcing the emergency evacuation of children from frontline villages in Zaporizhia. Kyiv is hitting back. A daring drone strike recently ignited a massive fire in Russia's Rostov. But the sheer weight of Moscow's offensive is pushing the defenders to the absolute brink. Ukraine says it needs air defense systems, artillery shells and missiles now, not months later. Every delay costs territory. Every shortage costs lives. But just as the pressure peaks, France has slammed the brakes. Paris is blocking Ukraine from using a proposed $104 billion financing mechanism to buy American weapons. France wants the portion earmarked for arms to be spent only within Europe's defense industry. A move framed as strengthening European strategic autonomy. Germany is uneasy. Eastern European states are alarmed, and Ukraine is nervous. Ukraine officials warn that limiting access to US weapons could slow deliveries at a critical moment, weakening defenses just as Russia presses harder. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Iran is burning with unrest and the shockwaves are being felt far beyond its borders. For the third straight week, streets across the Islamic Republic remain tense as protesters challenge the regime and security forces respond with deadly force. The rising bloodshed has now pushed the crisis onto the global stage, where Washington could take a decision that may cause ripple effects across West Asia and beyond. Demonstrations continue across Iran despite a sweeping crackdown by the state security forces. A US-based human rights organization now estimates that more than 2,500 people have been killed since the protests began. That figure reflects the scale of the violence in the Islamic Republic. As the death toll climbs, the pressure is building inside the White House. American President Donald Trump is considering whether to strike Iran. The deliberations come as the administration remains sharply divided over how to respond to Tehran's actions. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance is reportedly leading an effort to slow the march toward military action. He and several senior officials are urging the president to put diplomacy first and avoid steps that could trigger a wider regional conflict. Their concern is that United States strikes could strengthen the Iranian leadership's grip on power and derail the protest movement from within. Trump, however, appears increasingly inclined toward a forceful response. The stance, remember, marks another departure from the core promise of the Trump-Vance campaign, which ran on ending American involvement in prolonged foreign wars. Trump and Vance won the 2024 election under the America First banner, pledging to pull the United States out of what they called endless conflicts. Yet, during his second term, President Trump has repeatedly moved in the opposite direction, and he's faced backlash from parts of his own political base after ordering airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities last year, and that criticism is now resurfacing as the current crisis escalates. The president is set to meet with senior advisors to weigh his next moves. Options under review range from cyber operations and expanded sanctions to direct military strikes. Across the Persian Gulf, America's Arab partners are urging restraint. Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Qatar have all warned Washington that any attempt to destabilize Iran's leadership could send oil prices soaring and ultimately damage the American economy. They also fear political blowback within their own borders.
We know that any escalation of the sort that you described would have catastrophic results in the region and beyond, and therefore we want to avoid that as much as possible. The talks continue, our calls continue.
Israel is reportedly urging Washington to show restraint. Israeli officials believe that the Iranian regime has not yet been weakened enough for American strikes to deliver a decisive blow. Their view adds to the caution being voiced by several of America's closest regional partners. Against the threat of possible American strikes, Iran has warned neighbors hosting American troops that it would hit American bases if Washington strikes. According to a Reuters report, the United States is withdrawing some personnel from its major bases in West Asia as a precautionary measure due to high regional tensions. Now, amid all of this, Donald Trump has issued his own warnings. On Tuesday this week, he addressed Iranian demonstrators directly, telling them that help is on its way. And now he said that the United States would respond with what he calls very strong action if Iran begins executing protesters.
I haven't heard about the hanging. If they hang them, you're going to see some things that I don't know what where you come from and what your thought process is, but you'll perhaps be very happy.
What do you mean by that?
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action.
Inside Iran, confirming details remains difficult as authorities restrict internet access, blurring the line between verified information and uncertainty. Reports suggest Iran is preparing to carry out its first execution linked to the protests following mass arrests across the country. The state television has shown large funerals in Tehran for members of the security forces that have been killed during this unrest. At the same time, demonstrations continue in key commercial areas, including Tehran's Grand Bazaar, where videos show the police using tear gas to scatter the crowds. Images circulating on social media appear to show dozens of bodies at Tehran's morgue, offering a glimpse of how sharply the death toll has risen since the early days of the uprising. The crackdown has also ignited protests around the world, with demonstrators rallying in cities from North America to Europe and Australia. Inside Iran, pro-government rallies are also taking place, openly praised by the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Pro-regime demonstrations have surfaced beyond Iran as well. Unconfirmed reports of U.S. aerial refueling tankers positioning in the Hawaii have now sparked speculation about possible long-range military preparations. Analysts say that similar movements were observed before last year's American strikes on Iran as well. As it stands, Iran remains locked in turmoil tonight. Whether this crisis can still be contained or whether it is about to spiral into something far larger may no longer just be Iran's problem and in Iran's hands alone. Well, let's talk about Greenland. Greenland is feeling the heat of the great power politics. This after American president's latest threat to Denmark, Denmark has moved to bolster its troops' presence in the island. And Greenland's government says that a significant number of Danish troops are deployed in the region to continue military exercises and cooperate with regional allies. Greenland also added that the purpose of these Danish troops is to train the ability to operate under the unique Arctic conditions. This is also to strengthen the alliance's footprint for the benefit for both European as well as transatlantic security. This comes after US President called Greenland an important component of his Golden Dome project, which is his flagship air and missile defense system plan. He asserts that owning Greenland would further embolden NATO's defenses. In fact, he took a jibe at Denmark once again, asking the NATO members to get Russians and Chinese out of the territory. The European Union has once again asserted that decisions about Greenland's future rest with Denmark and Greenland, adding that the EU stands with the people of Greenland.
Greenland is part of NATO. And when we are speaking about Arctic security, this is one of the core topics of NATO. And we know that the glue between the allies is the fact that there's always the clear motto, one for all for one. So NATO is one forum to integrate the different interests that are out there.
In Greenland's capital, locals say that the tone has shifted from diplomatic talks to something far more coercive, leaving many fearful about what comes next.
Overwhelming, I can put that in one word. It is quite overwhelming, especially with the example he set with Venezuela. It is like kind of last year it was a whole different thing. It felt more neutral. It felt more of a negotiation. This year it feels more of a threat.
The concern comes as senior American officials, including Marco Rubio, are hosting Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers at the White House. A meeting meant to calm tensions, but one that has done little so far to ease public unease. Denmark and Greenland's leaders have made their position clear. The island is not for sale and its future will not be decided by external pressure. Yet, on ground, people say that the uncertainty is deeply personal, affecting families, children, and how they plan for the future. Despite Greenland being covered by the NATO security arrangement, fears of economic coercion or worse are no longer dismissed as unthinkable. Residents speak of anger, fear, and a growing need to think seriously about how to protect their homeland.
I don't know how to prepare myself and my son. I have a 6-year-old, so I don't know how to prepare.
Now, the pressure is also building in Copenhagen. Danish officials are said to be struggling to read Washington's endgame, with growing concern that this standoff could strain or even fracture the Western alliance. As the Arctic emerges as a new geopolitical frontline, Greenland finds itself caught between strategic interests and its people's right to self-determination.
Tensions are obviously extremely high, both here in Greenland and in Denmark. I mean, there's definitely a worry, a fear in Denmark that this is going to tear basically the Western alliance apart. It's a very hard situation for the Danish government to handle, basically because they don't really get what the US president wants.